And welcome back. It is the WXCO Morning Report on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Into the month of September. Start of a new month, and it's always the first week of the month. And I got to say, I always enjoy when she comes in because no matter what else is going on, it does bring a ray of sunshine here.
Thank you,
It
Chad.
does. It really does. I tell you. I mean, even when I'm kicking myself for what I'm doing wrong, you come in here and make me feel better. And it's always so much fun to talk to Christine Daniels, Executive Director, head honcho of the Good News Project. And,
that was the nicest introduction ever. Thank you.
What you talk about is rubbing off on me. You talk
Good.
about the way that you run your office and the way that you all support each other and make it a place where people want to come in. Ian, do I make this place where do you feel like I make you feel like you want to come in here, or do I?
Yes, absolutely.
Good. That's what I like to hear. I put them on the spot.
That's a dangerous thing to do on the spot.
I would say, have you say, well, now that you've brought up the subject.
No, absolutely not.
Fantastic. But Christine, I know we talk about, really, I think interesting stuff. And I am ready to learn myself here today. And not that I don't learn in all the other subjects that we talk about, but strategic planning. And I was saying to you that I am not the best person when it comes to forward planning from a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. And you were saying that until you got this job where you basically have to be able to look ahead, that you weren't that great at it as well.
Right. So, I've been with Good News for 25 years, and we will be beginning our third strategic planning session. So basically about every 5 years. And it's really taught me so much about just planning for business, planning for change, dreaming a little bit, visioning what you see your business and your world looking like in 4 to 5 years. It's just I find it invigorating of a process. So I'm ready to talk a little bit more about it.
And also something that we've talked about in the time that you've been joining us is that you have been actually bearing fruit because of this, because you had, long range projects where you had to, for a very long time, have the planning in order to have the money come in, and also everything that goes along with it on the outside. Without this planning, you could not have done it, correct?
That's very true. So, the first time we did it, I have to admit, the people who help you facilitate this, they warn about putting this on the shelf and letting it collect dust afterwards. And I have to say, our first strategic plan did a lot of collecting dust. The second one we went through, we rebranded, we kind of redid our logos. We revamped our mission statement a little bit. We added vision, we added values, and we had the people in place to really make it work. So you have to have action steps that come out of this. You might have a retreat for a day or 2 days, and you bring key stakeholders into this conversation. So about 15 people. It's not everyone in your organization. You pick a couple key staff, a couple board members, and then you look for other people who interact with your organization, like volunteers or donors or clients, and you try to get as many perspectives as possible.
I was going to say, it's all about different angles, isn't it? Because you see things from your position that maybe other people see things differently that you don't see, that it doesn't, that's out there. It's nothing that you're doing wrong or anybody else is doing wrong, but there's just different angles, and sometimes we'll miss it. And boy, having the different viewpoints. But also, I think what you're saying as well is, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
That it's good to have not too many as well. You can get bogged down where if you have everybody in the organization coming in and trying to put together this plan, then nothing ever gets done either.
Correct.
It's about having the right people involved. Correct?
Yeah. So the gal that we work with, she gives us a hard line of 15 people. So you really have to put thought into who those 15 people are going to be. Sometimes, and we were just looking at these lists and these names last week to build our next group of strategic planners, which will happen later in the fall. But we don't necessarily want to overlap people who had participated before, but you want someone who has historical perspective, that can still bring that vision of, where did we come from, where are we going, sort of thing, versus people who maybe just jumped on your board a year ago who don't have that historical perspective. So you get both of those things to kind of even it all out.
That is such an interesting point, and I talk a lot about people within my business where if you don't have historical perspective, it's hard to do my job, because so many of the stories that come out now have their seeds on something that happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Even doing sports, I mean, I'll see articles that will say, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody here, but I'm going to use this example because I just made me laugh when I saw this. One of the area television stations did a story at the start of football season that said last season was one of the greatest seasons that DC Everest football ever had. And I'm thinking, they won 5 state championships back when I was a kid. They lost 3 games last year. They made the semifinals. It was a great year, obviously a great year, but to say it was the best year they ever had,
they didn't have that historical perspective.
Right. And the thing we see it, and I think we see it, in the media, they have so many new people that come through. Back when I was growing up, and maybe even back when you were growing up, we had these folks that would be with the channel 7s and the channel 9s for years and years and years. And nowadays it seems like there's a lot of turnover and a lot of churn with it. But I do think that historical perspective within business as well, because if you're just, somebody who's here for the last 2 years, they may have an idea. And if nobody remembers, hey, we tried that 8 years ago, you may try it again, and it didn't work.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me of something. It's not related to strategic planning necessarily, but when I first moved to town,
to flow with the feel here.
When I first moved to town 25 years ago, to take the job with Good News Project, I, came on as an administrative assistant, and Chuck McCarthy, who is a co-founder of the organization, he just took me around town to introduce me to different people he thought I should meet. And one of the people that I don't want to use names. I just don't want to embarrass anybody, although it wouldn't be an embarrassment to her. I was telling her all these ideas I had, and I'm coming in as a, 24-year-old something with, a lot of big ideas and idealism. And like, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this. And she looked me in the eye and she said, just wait, just be here for a while to see what's going on. Learn. And I really took that to heart. And now, 25 years later, I see how important that really was, to not jump in and make all these strange changes because you don't have that historical perspective.
You said, and again, we're talking to Christine Daniels, who is the executive director of the Good News Project here on 98.9 WXCO. You've said that you're on the process of your next strategic plan, and at the last one, and I'm going to use your words as you sent to me. You said that you'd rocked our last plan and accomplished all the goals we had set out to accomplish. So we're coming from a successful place.
Yes.
My first thought is, did that mean that you didn't go far enough?
Ooh, no, you know what? So it's a good question, though. We did. We worked hard. We worked hard to.
It wasn't easy to get there.
It wasn't easy. And it took a lot of perseverance and dipping back into the plan to be like, are we making these day-to-day decisions in light of this plan that we created? And, originally we were going to do our strategic plan at the beginning of 2020, so back in 2019, we were starting to plan, and we're like, okay, we're going to do that in the spring, in May. And of course that did not happen. And the board's like, we're whirling from what's going on. This is not the time.
Right.
But we dug in at the end of 2020 to do it, because then it was the time. It's like, okay, this is the most unusual time of our lives as an organization and in the world. Now is the time we have to vision what this next 4 to 5 years looks like. And so we did. And it had to do with our capital campaign. It had to do with our, going to remote places with our medical equipment. It had to do with increasing partnerships in the community and really reaching out and networking. It had to do with engaging more youth into the program and education. And I mean, we have every single week, we have high schoolers coming in doing one thing or another for our program. So, I mean, We did a great job. And it was also, diversifying our board and establishing more processes for onboarding. We did all of that.
When you look now at the next strategic plan, how is it easy to say, well, we did everything right the last time, so we're just going to do the same things? Or do you try to make sure that the mind is open to any things that you can do to even improve it this time
It's
around?
got to be a more open-minded thing because we have accomplished those things. We can't do them again because they're done.
That's
right.
right.
So, the big question is how will we best fulfill our mission in the next 4 to 5 years? And so with everyone focused on that question, we have to start by doing an internal SWOT analysis,
Mhm.
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to our organization, our
Mm.
programming. So as a staff, we're going to do that. But we also have to do a survey. And like I said, those stakeholders earlier, really trying to understand what is it that they get out of donating to good news or volunteering for good news. What is it that keeps them coming back and really understanding that perspective?
How many times is there something that, and I imagine it happens very often, that pops in that was not anything that was on the mind when you go through this process?
Every single time. Every single time something comes up and it's like, whoa.
But the ability to have that flexibility has to be vital within any organization.
And that's the beauty of gathering in a group of people too. You're not going to get that any other way if you're not asking for feedback or you're not doing that creative process that kind of bubbles up and it starts new ideas. And that's where those real weird outside of the box things come from. We're like, oh, that's a good one. Hey, we could do that, and then it's creating that action plan to get us from right now, which, we're not doing it, to in 4 years, hey, we're going to be, just
what's a mistake?
successful.
What's a mistake that you've learned over the years while doing this process for folks maybe who are thinking about maybe improving their own action plans here? Is there something that you learned that, hey, boy, I'm glad I learned this, but this really kind of got us off on the wrong track, or not?
I guess the biggest thing is ignoring it and just doing, business as usual.
Oh, that's me.
That's the biggest mistake, Chad. Just ignoring that it exists. We've been doing a lot better of just being like, this is part of our daily life. And so going back to it and making sure that it's on our monthly board agenda so that everyone knows where we're at. And then, the accountability of the board at that point can help push things forward too. Like, oh, this should have been done by, this date. We got to put some time into this.
One of the things that I find interesting in my discussions here, and I've talked to other people where ego has been a problem within an organization. They've told me that, oh, I'm part of this board and this other person is so difficult to work with, wants to go in this direction. I just don't think that's the right way to go. Lack of ego. And I think talking to you, it seems as though what's the old saying that if nobody cares who gets credit, boy, it's so much easier to get things done, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I mean, it sounds as though during this process, boy, for the 15 people that you have around the table, you can't have an ego, can you?
No, you really can't. And that's part of how the selection process, takes place.
Right.
So you get to know, the people in your midst, and you're like, this person might have good ideas, but this person might just bulldoze everybody else. So that would not be a good person for the strategic planning group then.
Let me ask you real fast, because something you said to me before we started that, in addition to, whether it's a nonprofit or a profit organization, you said, well, this is something probably you could talk about within government as well.
Yeah.
And you deal with government entities a lot. Maybe in your experiences, how do you think government could better use something like this?
Well, so I was just thinking, because strategic planning is on the brain right now for my business. Like, how amazing would it be if an administration newly elected, and it could be either party, it could be anyone, but like that it was actually written into a job description of, once you take office, you're going to go through, I don't know, maybe a 2-month strategic planning process, so that you really can see from point A to point D what the steps are to get to what the goals are.
Mhm.
And if you have enough people around the table, and like you said, you can't have the bulldozers, you have to have the open-minded people who want to be part of just making this a better way to serve the people, the
Mhm.
American people, and it's kind of similar because, nonprofits have to be accountable to donor dollars, right?
Mhm.
People are donating to us and they, we are accountable for
Oh.
how we use that money. And there's audits, there's everything
One
that makes sure.
one mistake could be the end of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. And there's this oversight, and I really do believe it's good oversight,
Mhm.
because it keeps everyone honest.
Real
And
quickly, that
yeah.
reminds me of some of my pet peeves. And again, this is kind of going off the.
It's okay.
Is that when you hear about all the red tape, all the regulations, it's strangling. No, it's protecting at the same time. No, you don't want it to be where it's like you can't get anything done. But to say that, we can't have any regulation or any rules to follow, that leads to problems at the other end of the spectrum as well. There's always the happy medium, right?
It's true. My son was just talking to me about, he went to a Brewers Academy camp. It was a 3-day baseball camp at Wausau East over the summer. And he was just telling me this morning, he's like, I don't know why we couldn't practice with regular balls. They used some kind of, the way he explained it was like some kind of mesh ball. And I'm like, well, why do you think they did that? And he's like, oh, probably safety. And he's like,
dripping sarcasm.
Oh my gosh. And I'm like,
kids don't care about safety.
I mean, he was offended someone wouldn't trust him with the regular baseball kind of thing. He's 10. I mean, he can be trusted. Right. But the thing is, I'm like, well, Ray, think about it this way. Someone did something that hurt another person and they had to put safety parameters in place so that it wouldn't happen again. That's why we have these things.
And you can have the camp.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have because you see sometimes in baseball where the ball gets away from a pitcher or something like that, and you don't want it to stop the entire process.
Right.
So you try to do something to keep it going.
Exactly.
Man. Okay.
Wow, we went all over,
well,
I feel like it's related.
I think you ought to jump into the governor's race based on a platform of strategic planning.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I can see the banners. Strategic planning to take Wisconsin into the future.
Yes. The first 2 months of my time
we're gonna get the stakeholders around the table. We're gonna make Wisconsin even better. So
and you're not going to get the hotheads in there.
There you go. So I'm the first one to say Christine Daniels for governor.
Oh golly Moses.
We just got to find the donors now. Doggone it.
Oh my gosh. I have a lot of respect for people who run for office. It's a rough.
I would not want to make those calls. I'm not comfortable knocking on the doors.
Yeah. And just, the attacks on people's families and
let's be better in 2026. Again, we're going to start to tell people be better in 2026.
All right. Sounds good. Well, good news. We'll have an amazing strategic plan that we'll be working on by then.
Christine, always good to see you.
You too. Thank you.
We're going to take a time out and come back with more. That was Christine Daniels, Good News Project Executive Director here on 98.9 WXCO.
And we're clear.
I'm gonna be governor.
There you go. I've started the boom.
The movement.